Welcome to Undiet Your Coaching Podcast. I'm Stephanie Dodier, clinical nutritionist and creator of the Going to Beyond the Food method, and I'm on a mission to help all coaches undiet their life and their coaching business. Ready? Let's do this. Welcome back to the podcast, and I'm going to get really personal and vulnerable in this episode. I'm going to talk about something that came to my awareness in the last couple of weeks because of some personal work that I was doing around shame. The shame that I was experiencing around the amount of revenue in my business. So some of you, if you are an email recipient from me, you received an email on January the 1st titled 156,000 cash revenue. So this is part 2 of that email. I'm going to go behind the scene and talk to you about this conditional belief that many of us have within us that leads us to think about business in a way that I believe is not productive. So I'm going to give you some background and go into this concept of the 7-figure business ideal. So year end came in at the end of 2022, and I was looking at the report of my revenue in my business, and the report said $156,000. And a wave of shame came over my body. Now, I'm a coach. I'm a trained coach. I have training in trauma response and nervous system regulation. I have been coaching myself for years. I have a whole bunch of knowledge that led me to experience that shame vastly differently than 10 years ago. Than some of you would, than some of my students would have. So what I'm about to share with you, the response to the wave of shame that I experience in looking at my business revenue is a masterful response. It's a response that you can learn from. It's a response that came from years of practice and training and knowledge. So I'm saying that to you because I don't want you to double shame yourself, okay? As I'm sharing how I process the shame, there could be a response from you to say, oh my God, she's so good. I'm not there yet, and I'm a coach. I'm such a terrible coach. I don't know these things. I should know these things. Oh my God, and use my story to beat yourself up, to criticize yourself, to judge yourself, to assess your value as a coach because of my story and how I processed it. Okay? If your brain is leading you to process my story from that perspective, meet yourself with love and compassion, right? And acknowledge that there is a gap in your own personal development that you need to learn how to respond differently. The intention of this short podcast episode is not to teach you all that you need to know to process shame. That cannot be done over a podcast. That's done in the context of a coaching program, a course, a structural curriculum that's going to teach you how to process shame, how to have a mindset that will allow you to process shame differently. I want to share this story with you in the awareness that I came in from processing the shame and the win that came out of it as a space of inspiration for you. Now that we're all there, we're going to go back to looking at the results and feeling shame. So as I felt the shame going through my body, I recognize it. I'm like, oh, there we go. The wave of shame is taking over me. I know the sensation in my body. I know what shame feels like for me, and this is happening right now. There's a wave of shame that's happening for me, And the first thing we do with that is not to run away from it, not to want to fix it, but it's to be with it. So I just literally sat, in my case, for a day and hugged myself, did a whole bunch of somatic experiencing work to feel the shame, to process the shame, and open the space for curiosity. It's like, oh, okay, we're going to feel it, we're going to experience it. Where did that came from? And because I'm a mindset coach, that's the framework that holds all my body of work. I take responsibility for what happens in my body, right? That's one of the things that we need to master is radical self-responsibility. I'm like, okay, there's a thought, there's a belief that I have that process this series of numbers on the report that makes me feel shame, that makes me experience shame. So what are these thoughts? What are these beliefs that I have that makes me experience 156000 in a way that results in shame? Because I opened myself to curiosity instead of judgment, I was able to see that the thought was, you should be making more money. Okay, I'm like, okay, why? Why should I be making more money? Because this result is normal, it's average. And you as a coach should be making more money than this. Like, oh, okay, interesting. How much should I be making? Right? Because I'm open and curious, I went into my brain. I'm like, brain, what is your belief around how much should I be making? And right away, my brain told me you should be making 7-figure. I'm like, oh, interesting. I should be making $1 million or more in order to be qualified to teach business. Okay, interested. That came through me through doing some of the technique that I teach and doing some thought download and some modeling and asking myself question. And I sat with that. When my brain felt, when my body, my nervous system, because I was able to create safety, my brain was able to release these thoughts and these beliefs to me so I can then continue investigating it. But I just want to say that without safety, without unconditional acceptance, these thoughts would have not been released from my brain. So I'm like, oh, so that's interesting. I should be making $1 million in order to be a business coach. I'm like, okay, is that a fact? No. There's no rules out into the world that says that in order to coach business, you need to make $1 million. It's not a fact. It's a belief that I have. Why? Where did that belief came from? And that's when, this is days in, right? This is like 5 or 6 days. I think it started on December 24th. And by the time I hit December 31st in the morning, I'm like, holy fuck shit. Holy football. I hold the 7-figure business ideal in my head. I have a belief that in order to be successful in business and coaching business, you need to make $1 million. Interestingly enough, I coach on the thin ideal. My main belief that I'm trying to change into the world is that the thin ideal, what women use against themselves, is the size of their body. And here I am, when it comes to business and coaching and what I do in my body of work, I'm upholding the 7-figure coach business ideal, 7-figure business ideal. How interesting. How interesting that I am conditioned to believe that more is better. It's the exact same thing in the thin ideal where less is better. That alone released the shame out of my body. When I was able to see that it wasn't a fact, that it was a belief that I had in my brain, beliefs are optional, right? They're not something that you have to think. There's beliefs like the thin ideal that for part of your life you think, and then you stop thinking it because you choose to opt out of that belief. I'm like, interesting. Okay. Do I want to continue to uphold the belief that in order to be worthy of being a business owner, a business coach, you have to make seven figure? Do I want to continue to think that? And the answer was a visceral hell fucking no. Because I know from having changed my belief about body size and about food and about health, how liberating life's become when you don't uphold a external standard to the way you live your life. And that's what I was doing in business. I was upholding a amount of money to determine how I felt. I was only allowed to feel successful if I made this amount of money. And as long as I upheld this belief of the amount of money that I was making, I would never be free. I would always have to uphold the standards of toxic business culture. And that just about broke my brain. And this is where the podcast really is centered around, is examining your own conditioned belief around business. So most of you listening to this are not business coaches. Perhaps for you, it's the six-figure thing. In order to be considered a successful coach, a successful therapist, a successful whatever you are, you have to make X amount of money. Your worth as a business owner is attached to the money you make. This conditioned societal conditioning that more is better, that more is successful. You cannot be successful if you just make six figure. And I just want to sideline to say that as a feminist business person, I've upheld this identity for decades now. I know the statistic. I mean, the statistics are getting better and better, but fact is, in 2019, 88% of female-owned businesses make less than $100,000 a year. That's a fact. That is not a belief. That is a statistical fact that 88% of female entrepreneurs earn less than $100,000 a year. So why is it that I'm not considering myself successful? It's because the system, society, doesn't want me to consider myself successful doing the average. Success sits outside of the average. That's how the big belief is in our current society, is success sit when you are the exception. And only exceptional people who have achieved exceptional results are entitled to lead other people. There comes the exact same thing with the thin ideal. I've had, and this is like, this whole thing happens literally in my brain within 2 hours of realizing this seven-figure business ideal versus the thin ideal. I'm like, holy fuck, I had to do the same work when I became a nutritionist. Because the thin ideal was saying you can't be a nutritionist unless you have a thin body, right? You are not qualified to give nutritional advice unless you're thin. And that for the first 3 to 4 years of my practice as a nutritionist ruled my life. because I had to control my way to be perceived as qualified to give nutritional advice, although it had nothing to do with it. But I was upholding the belief that the size of my body created my expertise. The same thing will happen to you guys depending on your field. I can think of fitness experts, right? You're not qualified to give fitness advice unless you have a quote unquote fit, toned body, thin body. So why is it that when you come to business coaching, the amount of money that I make qualifies me as being able to help other people? It only does if I uphold the belief that success is in the exception. If I continue to believe that being successful is in the 10% of people who make more than 100,000 and the 2% that makes more than 7-figure, only 2% of female-owned businesses make more than $1 million. That is my standard for success. Then it disqualified me as being able to help other people build business, as long as I agree and continue to uphold that success. And it's not for me. It's not even my personal value in my life. I don't believe that success has anything to do with external. It has to do with the thought that I think that creates the feeling of successful. But all of these thinking, all of these beliefs were unconscious. They were hidden in the back of my brain. And the only indicator that I had that I was thinking this secret ghost unconscious thought was the feeling of shame that came over my body as I looked at my forecasted results for the year. Our emotions are the radar of our life. If we don't know how to feel, investigate, if we're not curious in front of our emotion, we miss all this unconscious thinking and belief that will lead us to transform and change our life. If you want to change your life, if you want to change your business result, if you want to change the amount of money you make, it's going to be in your unconscious thoughts, your unconscious co-opt of belief. Like me, I was unconsciously co-opting that 7-figure business was the ideal. That was the standard that all of us, that me, were supposed to reach. And to that, I say, fuck no. That is not how I'm going to lead my life. This is not how I want to standardize my life, because I know what it does. And I know the toxicity that it brings in my life from having lived it with my body, with my food regimen, with my fitness level. Like everywhere where I had to unlearn diet culture, guess what? I have to unlearn toxic business culture. And that's what I wanted to bring to your awareness today. Are you unconsciously co-opting toxic business culture? Do you have a figure? Do you have external element that makes you judge if you've been successful or not? Are you co-opting the more is better, the more is more successful? Do you unconsciously co-opt more followers, more income? And this is where it gets tricky. Have you internalized it in a way where you think and you lead your business, you run your business as if this was the truth? That's what I was doing. And that is why I'm really bringing you behind the scene here. This is why I have a business coaching program that I have not made public. I only been using it and teaching it to my mentorship student, to my mastermind student. I am sitting on it to allow the rest of the world to learn from this business coaching program, because I was upholding the 7-figure business ideal. Now that this is in my awareness, that I've processed the shame, the world is becoming my oyster. So be aware. This offer is coming your way very soon because I am now in alignment. I have peeled the layers that were holding me back. What layers, what conditional belief, what thoughts is creating misalignment for you that is causing you to not put your offer full force into the world? And perhaps some of you know what it is. Now, here's the important part. Do you know how to change that? Do you know how to change your belief? Do you know how to change your thoughts so you're no longer the victim of the whatever condition? We'll call it the 6-figure business ideal for you, or the 7-figure business ideal. Do you know how to change that? Do you know how to do what I just walked you through in my story? Process the shame and creating safety and changing your thoughts and bringing up into your awareness unconscious. Do you know how to do all of that? Instead of, here's the 15 strategy to gain more followers on Instagram. Toxic business culture will tell you what's more important is the 15 strategies to gain more followers on Instagram versus how to change your mindset, how to change your beliefs, how to process your emotion. The toxic business culture will value option A over option B. So perhaps the greatest investment you can make in your business is these tools of processing your emotion, of doing some mindset work and changing your belief system and being aware of what drives your behavior around your business instead of just using self-discipline and willpower like with the thin ideal. Everything in the thin ideal is, I'm looking at my notes right now to make sure I'm not missing anything, but when you relate to your success externally, in this case, the thin ideal, then the solution always lies in external action, and it always requires willpower and self-discipline. This is why when you use a process, in the case of eating, you use a process like intuitive eating, you put yourself through the healing and recovery process of intuitive eating. It's not easy. Remember, all of you, it's not easy. That is an adventure in itself. You put yourself through that process. On the other side, when you no longer have an ideal of what you should be eating and how much and all the things around eating, you experience freedom, liberation, joy. Can we talk about the joy of eating as an intuitive eater versus as a restricted eater? That's what's going to happen with your business. When you liberate your business, your views on business from external achievement, followers, number of people on your email list, amount of money you make, amount of clients you have, when you liberate yourself from that, you're going to experience joy in running your business and growing your business. It's the same thing. And it's very interesting because I like I said in the beginning, I'm able to do this podcast episode because I've been at this now for this line of work of undieting my life, of working in the thought and the belief for years. And it blows my mind everywhere where these social conditioning are present in my life. And there's many circumstances in my life that I haven't had the space, the capacity, the desire to explore what social conditioning is running that part of my life. But I can tell you, this is an ongoing journey for the rest of my life, if I choose to. But it just came open to me in the case of business coaching. I'm inviting you to do the same thing in you. And you've done the work likely with food, perhaps with body image, perhaps with health or fitness or wherever your area of specialty is. I'm inviting you to do that work when it comes to business. And you will blow your own goddamn mind what it's going to create in your life in that area. That it is joy, ease, confidence, contentment in your business when you liberate yourself from these external standards to achieve in the same way that it did for you for the 10 ideal. That's what I wanted to share with you today. And I wanted to invite you to do this work for you and to see where being aware of how toxic business culture plays into your business, what can that create for you in your own business? I would love to hear from you. I know this will be so helpful for you. And at the end of the day, it's about making you successful in your business so that you can help impact thousands of women and that collectively we impact millions of women. So with that in mind, I love you and I'll see you on the next podcast. Ready to shed diet culture from your practice and help more clients do the same? Awesome. We've got 3 resources to get you started. Simply go to stephaniedodier.com/pro series, all in one word, and access our 3 free training classes that are currently available. We also have a free PDF guide to intuitive eating, an article about the non-diet approach. We also offer a variety of paid programs throughout the year to support you in your journey to undiet your coaching practice. Join us at stephaniedodier.com/pro series, and I'll see you on the other side.